Over there we have the horses, and I'd like to show you a few things about pruning in a natural way of the palovnia trees. And probably the very same thing can also be done to the trees here in this wannabe food forest. But then of course it depends what the understory is. If that is food that you want to have for yourself and there is all the time something, then this method will not work. So this here is the place where we are going. I will take you inside and show you this from the other part over there, so that you don't have the sun shining right into the camera. We do have this string of polywire connected to the electrical system, but I guess it won't work. It will not provide a shock because it's just a single strand, and the soil is now so dry that it will not be conducive to electricity, and therefore the circuit will never close. The good thing about the horses is they know what that string means and they won't challenge it. Cows will always challenge it. Right now it is way too hot. Also it's less hot than the days before. So it definitely feels fresh now. Also we are still in the height of summer. So the sheep, they are not out here. They are not trying to forage. They hide somewhere in the shade. And this gate is open, so anyone can go in here, be it the sheep or the horses or any other animal. So that is an important thing for what I'm going to show you. As you can see, this area has been manured on very well, and the horses have removed any forage that was edible. So basically everything except the thistles. And here is the thing that I want you to see. So you see there is the single strand of polywire that keeps the horses on this side. I would think that the horses are not able to reach that tree. And those who are able to reach it are the sheep. And the sheep can stand up on their hindquarters. So they can reach quite high. And they removed all the leaves from this tree except the tiny ones there at the top. Those are the new ones that will soon become a lot bigger. And the tree does photosynthesis also on the trunk that is green, so that is not the huge problem. But you can also see that the sheep actually did use the trunk to sustain themselves to get to the leaves further up, because you can see the marks there. That is from their feet, from their hooves. So that is what sheep do. So if the tree is of that size, they will basically remove everything. And that can be a problem. They did the very same thing for that one over there, but this is taller, and now they pruned only the bottom half. Let's see how the others look like. So here it's the same thing. This branch there that came out of the root system, that got devoured, and all the leaves are gone except the tiny one that is emerging. And the other two trunks, they are looking fine. So this tree has no issue. It will grow two clean trunks if the pruning continues. And also you can see that there are some marks here on the trunk from the sheep's activity. And because the sheep are small, they go under this single strand of polywire, and then they have this whole area to themselves, which is why they also removed the standing hay, the old grasses. If we wanted to prevent this from happening, then of course we would have to put up a sheep net here, so that this won't happen. But in this case, it's kind of for the benefit of all. The natural pruning happens here because most of the trees are big enough that this is not an issue. And by the way, now that we are at the very end of summer, here and there we do irrigate them. So for example, today they received 2 hours of drip irrigation. It's mini sprinklers that are integrated in this drip line. So most are okay. But then, cases like this is not so good. But we know that this will come back. So by spring this will re-emerge, and maybe over the next few weeks will make a few leaves. So they did not kill it. And here is another case. This is a nice one. So this started to become like a bush, but the pruning removed all the leaves further down, and we can actually now remove the branches if we wanted to and get this back into the regular shape. But probably here in this case, as it's not for wood, this is not so much needed. You see how the trunk looks like. It splits there at the top because of a similar thing happening in the past, and it is happily growing and will become tall and add biomass. And you see the leaves that have fallen to the ground. That is part of the biomass that we are looking for. So this is all good. And by the way, what looks like a shade is actually water. So there it is moist. There is some sort of a leak, or there is simply more coming out, and therefore that is what's happening. It might actually be a leak, because there the end of this line is not closed. It's an interesting discovery. But anyway, this moisture is welcomed. And I've been thinking, now that we learn how to construct an irrigation system, we might actually want to put here irrigation with these wobblers. And depending on the pressure that we can use, they might irrigate circles of 10 to 15 meters in diameter. And this area is pretty perfect for running chicken tractors. So the combination of some trees and chicken tractors with some irrigation to keep this going over summer, this might be a very interesting thing. So I would love to do this, but of course we need to figure out in our new setup how this will fit, because it requires human attention and we need to figure out what our priorities are. But definitely there is an option to do this. And here the sheep have still a little bit more to eat. They will certainly do this over the next few days. And basically we are now running out of food, because this is one of the last places. And then we have to see, we cannot use the neighbor's land. Also there is communication here and there. They believe, for legal reasons, they cannot do anything with anyone. It's kind of the tenant who abandoned the place and never officially gave it back is now blocking the rightful owner from using their property. That is not a very good situation. And I'm scratching my head how this is possible. I for one would certainly manage this whole situation a little bit different, but who am I to provide an opinion about other people's legal business? So let's not take this remark of mine very seriously. And while I'm here, I can show you the situation here. So this is now definitely grazed to the ground, which is pretty normal here in this area. So once it rains, 3 weeks later it is green and you have a lot of forage. So this in itself is not a huge problem. Of course it would be a lot better to have the ground cover here all the time, but the problem is when there's no water, and there's no water because there's no rain and because there is no shade, and so we have a vicious cycle that is going on. And the only solution, I think, is to plant a lot, irrigate it while it establishes itself, and have a lot of shade. So all this being open with this thing over there, that is a major problem. So we need to come to a closed canopy. That would be best, because then the water cycle might work again and things will improve. Because right now everything is being burned, so the bacteria are being killed by the UV rays, and any drop of water gets evaporated and will go away. So this is not a good situation. And I think the idea of strips might also work out very well here, so that we simply install the irrigation first to define a strip, and once the irrigation is properly working, then we can come in with our soil building mix, deep rooting plants like the sun hemp and friends, and either shortly after also set some trees, or better, I think that is better, wait 1 full year, reseed, graze this area off, and then after a year of doing this, the next spring, then set palovnia trees, or depending on the condition and what plans we have for this area in the future, also add a bunch of native trees, support species, fruit trees, nut trees, all this. And that is the idea of strips, and we can also do this here. And that way, strip by strip, we are creating a closed canopy, so that eventually the animals can graze under the trees. And of course there's also the idea of tree fodder. So the leaves from those palovnia trees, they are definitely full of protein and are good feed for the animals. So lots of them have also a benefit for feeding the animals. So that is a very good thing. And now Tuscarora is curious, because she hears me talking, and she always likes to come and greet. Sakahaweya did the same thing when she was not blind. Let's go inside this wannabe food forest. I have a look at the vetiver. So first of all, I have to report that we have a puddle here again, and that puddle is because the drip irrigation lines disconnected due to very high pressure and pulses that basically blows them out, and so that happens. This installation here is new, so we added a shut-off valve here at the very beginning, there at the post down at the bottom, and this basically is the key to turn on the irrigation here in this area and turn it off again. You see this not connected hose, this will be connected the moment we plant vetiver along this berm. And one of the ideas that we learned by talking to the distributor of Seneca watering or irrigation equipment is, we will install a pressure reduction valve there, so that the pressure here is enough for the drip irrigation that we have, but we avoid the pulses and overpressure and all this. So once we compile our first order and get started with that, we will also take care of these things. So what I wanted to show you is the vetiver that we added, and by the way, they came along, and here they are, all 3 of them. But they're probably asking themselves if the human knows where there is more food. And the human has some ideas, but not for today. Because we have another patch of vetiver where they might be able to graze. But first we need to see how the area looks like. It's down there in zone A. Probably we need to put a string up there again. So here you can see some of the vetiver, like this one there, that is now growing. So they have survived, they have made roots. And the plan is to, now that we have no bovines to attend to, harvest vetiver every few days throughout the week, all the time, from the other place, and plant it here in this way. So we need to plant the second line that got postponed because of all the other things, and now it's time. And then the same thing should happen on this side, and eventually all of this, what you see here to the right, will have a lot of vetiver all the way to the fence, and probably on the other side as well. So the idea is to create here a huge plantation of vetiver that we can then strip graze step by step. So it's basically end of summer forage for the horses. And probably we can also let the sheep in, we will see. And probably we can also use this, would be interesting, with some geese. We will find out. But the idea is to fill this area with vetiver, and we might actually continue doing this step by step all the way to the other side of this paddock B3. And by the way, here's something very interesting. We have a baby oak that somehow established itself here. I have no idea where the acorn came from, but definitely this is growing. So this is very good. And the horses were here, they ate the vetiver to the left, but not this baby oak. So we did not plant it, it is a volunteer, but I'm very happy. And you can see here that vetiver is already recovering from the grazing the horses did a little while ago. And it's maybe 3 weeks or so, I would have to look it up, or you can do it. See the video about grazing vetiver, and then you know how long this has been now growing without being grazed. So that's very good. And speaking about the grazing, what the horses also do when they graze vetiver, they can go deep, and here and there they remove the dead parts of the plant. So this is not bad, and it looks like this. But of course it would be much nicer to have this area completely filled, and that is one of the things to do while we are still in summer. So basically when we are in September and we still have more vetiver, we can finish it, but by mid of September we should stop, because then the temperatures will go down, and vetiver wants very high temperatures like we have at the moment. So this is definitely something for the time between May and early September. And besides the farmyard in itself, this here is now the area that we need to focus on, with the only exception of a few things over there, this chicken coop. But it's basically done. The only thing that we need to do, by done I mean we have planted something for the chicken when they come. And what we need to do is, I want to have an enclosed run there where this bus tub sits, so that they can go out and are still protected. So there's a second chicken door, and on a weekend if I get up a little bit late, they can still go out and are not forced to be inside, but they're still protected because they're inside of that enclosed run. So that is the other thing, so that we can have chicken. Probably next month, I hope, we can find a few and get started there. No more export in the store. But the area where we should focus on is now this here. And who knows, maybe we can also add a few more trees in autumn. We will see how that goes. And speaking about trees, for those who wrote me to come in November, I have not received new word from Live Terra. I might ping them. So until we have a signed piece of paper, the gentleman agreement, we will give you 9,000 saplings, still is there, but the execution probably hangs on the paperwork. And once the paperwork is there and we know how and when to prepare the site, then I will contact you and I will make an announcement here in some video so that everybody knows that we are now going to do this and when. The peaches continue to be very small, but I would think that this is also due to lack of water. So with a lot more water available, I would think that they are making bigger fruits and everything will be nicer. But then, with that vetiver and drip irrigation for the vetiver, the trees will also benefit. And of course, that puddle here, that is now to the benefit of the trees there in the berm. Because after all, this is a swale and we basically filled up the swale. So that is not the wrong thing. But of course, a more functioning system would be better. So we need to improve these details. You can also see that we have someone who is eating our peaches. Neatly dropped fruit stones. I wonder who that is. I am suspecting a rat, because they can go up the tree, pick the fruit and then leave just the stone. And I cannot find any ripe ones. So there are a few that have holes from the birds picking, and then there are those with this thing, the sap coming out of them. So those who said earlier that might be some sort of a wasp probably are right, because it's not that the trees are completely affected and therefore sick. So this tree has no other signs of problems besides what I just showed you. So that must be that someone put something into the fruit. And as I mentioned, that thing about pruning by way of sheep, so they would certainly eat a lot of this further down, and the goats probably will also take on the woody part. But the problem is, they would also go after anything else. So that is then a challenge. In France, they use sheep to clean up between the lavender. They have a little bit of that over there, but it's because they won't touch the lavender. They don't like the taste and smell of it, and therefore they leave it alone. But if now this berm had anything other growing that is green and edible to sheep, they will also remove all this. So in a food forest, where you have a lot of ground cover that is edible for humans, say salads or what could it be? Let's say strawberries, things like that. You would not be able to allow the sheep in there, or you have to manage this very, very tightly. It's a very interesting thing. I'd like to think about this for the time when we have more things here, how we then do this. So this is an interesting thing and right now this is still in the state of being abandoned and growing by itself, by its own means. But we definitely should provide some love here. But we also need to be careful not to be distracted, because eventually we do need some sort of income for this whole project. And speaking about vetiver is certainly one of the things that we can do. Our initial supplier down in Malaga planted this idea in my head a long time ago, actually. So we should offer vetiver, and we can easily do this once we set up a vetiver nursery. And in spring we will do this. So we will grow vetiver for the purpose of reproducing it there in this clear area over there, and it will get irrigated and all that. And basically we will offer slip by slip for sale, because you plant the vetiver by using these little slips. So that is what you plant, and we can make packages of 100 slips and offer them. I believe most offer this for €1 a slip, and that way we can also do this. And it grows all over Europe. I know, because I have been involved by helping and connecting a little bit. Our friends there in Malaga sold a number of vetiver slips to Germany, and it was planted there, and I believe it will certainly grow. Of course it will grow for less time than around here because the temperatures, but its positive properties are still something that the people who wanted to have it are appreciating. And so can you if you want to. So next year, let's say around July, we might have some vetiver that we can offer, and it would be nice to set up a tiny little side business of selling vetiver for things like that. So here the vetiver is to bring up the water, because it makes these very, very long roots, and with more of them it will definitely suck up the water. And there is this idea, and some of you mentioned that in a comment, that you plant vetiver in a circle around the tree and it will help the tree. So this is something that I tried over there, but unfortunately the irrigation didn't work, and so that experiment failed. But we will do so again. But first we will plant more vetiver along those berms, because then we have the material in place for chop and drop. So basically this, but the source of the material is right there. So we only have to cut it, and it will fall onto the berm and help to make soil and cover the soil from the sun, and we don't have to carry it. And like I said, we will set some space aside and do this. And if someone is interested, you can send me an email to basically let us know, yes, this would be interesting. I would order a few once they become available, and maybe we can do a regular thing out of this.